Welcome to the Pot of Inquiry. My guest today is Mollee Rucker. Mollee has started a company called Keto Brains, which is a company that designs nutritional supplements, and one of her products is a nootropic. It's an additive for coffee. I've been using it for several months now and have found it very efficacious and also quite tasty. So I wanted to bring her on the show, not only to talk about this product, but also to get a deep dive into fat adaptation, ketogenic diets, different ways that the body processes ketones. And I think you'll find the conversation very interesting. So please enjoy this conversation that I have with Mollee Rucker.
Welcome to the Pot of Inquiry. Ready for some thought-provoking cerebral whipping and the destruction of ridiculous medical dogma? Want to shift those stale, moldy old paradigms? Well then, don that thinking cap of yours. Get down in the cave and join our host, Dr. Stephen Barrett, for this week's episode. Let's start spelunking.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Pot of Inquiry. I am very excited to have our guest today, Mollee Rucker. And Mollee is one of the co-founders of a company that I discovered actually at one of the biohacker conferences a few months ago out in San Diego called Keto Brains. And Mollee, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to meet you, and I'm so happy we connected.
Well, actually, the way I met you is I was looking for something to put in my coffee, and I wandered by your booth, and there it was. And so that kind of got me hooked after the first time. And that's why I wanted to get you on the show, because I'm a big fan of what you're doing. So tell us about, before we start talking about nootropics, but why don't you tell us what was the motivation for you to develop this company, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, Keto Brains Nootropics ultimately came out of my 20 years in the supplement wellness nutrition space, and then my initial 2 years of fat adapting and playing around with what it was to be in a fat adapted state. And during that time, I had concocted what I felt was the perfect morning beverage to step into the day with clarity and with focus. And it was a nootropic stack that I had kind of honed in on for myself over those previous 20 years, coupled with the C8 MCT, which is the best for increasing ketones. And to be quite honest with you, I had no intention of starting a company or a product, because coming from the industry, I was really aware of everything involved, and it didn't sound like any fun at all.
Right.
But fortunately, my brother, who is an entrepreneur and who has built companies prior, he kind of insisted. He's like, no, sister, this works. People love this. We had tested it with friends and family. And, fortunately, he insisted we start a company. So we did. And to me, coming from a place where I understood these different supplements, I understood biochemically what they did to the body, to the neurotransmitters, and having been in a space where I'd also been a buyer of supplements, so many companies were producing product with brilliant marketing, beautiful labels, but you look on the back and you're getting suboptimal amounts of these ingredients.
Right.
So you're getting, a little fairy dusting of different amounts of things that have wonderful studies, but you're only going to get the benefits, right, if you get these efficacious doses. So I was inspired to produce a product that I would spend money on, that I would be excited to ingest, and that I knew had the active amounts of ingredients for people to feel.
Right.
I believe so many get excited about supplements of all kinds. They see all of the marketing and they buy a suboptimal product. And then for the rest of their time trying to get healthy, they think supplements are garbage and they don't work because they didn't get a good one.
Right.
And I thought it would be amazing to produce something that would do exactly what it says it's supposed to do, and that was high quality ingredients in proper amounts. And and one other little thing, so many people these days are working on this concept of, what's my best life? How do I optimize? How do I feel better? You can't do any of that if your neurotransmitters are not in a place where you're ready to tackle hard things.
Right.
And I feel like we're at a place right now where there's a lot of hard things for people to tackle in their lives, and they
Right.
need brains that are optimal. And we wanted to help.
Well, there's a lot of merit to what you just said, but before we get into that a little bit, your background's very interesting because before we started recording this, you were telling me about how you kind of went through a personal journey,
Yeah.
which I think is very important for people to hear because these things are very formative and they give
Yes.
you some context. So tell
Yeah.
people what you told me.
Yeah, so I was a chubby kid, and then I was a fat teenager, and then I was an obese teenager, and this was all during the time of snack wells and the world making us believe that no fat was the way to go.
Right.
So at some point, right around when I was 14, I was like, oh, well, the solution is just stop eating and never eat fat again. And I did that along with living at the gym, which was the healthiest part of all of that.
Right.
And lost 100 pounds, got
Wow.
skinny, got muscular. But as we all now know, the path I took to lose weight was not one that was filled with health. I got to this goal of skinny, and it didn't take long to understand that skinny wasn't healthy. So between 14 to 24 was just a whole lot of trying to figure out what is health? How do I find it? Where does it live?
Right.
And really not getting anywhere. But then around 24, I was looking for a job. I just moved back to California. I got a job at a health food store. Wasn't the job I thought I wanted. Ended up being a life-changing experience. I basically got paid to study, to learn, and to try to match people with the right supplements and the right diet to help them feel better. And over time, I stopped looking for skinny and started looking for health. And that really, now at 48, that's been the past 20 something years. And, at some point, paleo was a really nice place to land. And when I discovered keto, I was perfectly healthy. I was trail running, like I wasn't trying to fix anything, but I was entranced by the idea of seeing what another fuel substrate that I'd never experienced before might feel like.
Okay.
And through all of that journey, multiple years in the supplement industry, I've worked sales floors, I've formulated supplements, I along the way got clinical nutritionist certification. I've been director of innovation for companies. So the entire in and out, front and back of the supplement industry were kind of my formative years, starting really in my early 20s. And my excitement for understanding what can make us feel good and what real health is, it's not gone anywhere. If I didn't have a company and I was rich, I would just study full time.
Yeah. There's a lot to learning and the joy of learning, isn't there?
I love it, and that's the only downside to running a fast growing bootstrap company is there's less time for deep diving on new things.
Right. So you lost almost a whole human being. 100 pounds is a lot of weight.
And as a kid, I didn't only now when I talk to people about it, do I think about it in that way. As a kid, you're just a kid. You only have the information you have to go off of.
Right.
And, occasionally I think of it, but it just feels like one part in a long journey because the goal of getting skinny didn't solve for getting healthy, not mentally, physically, or otherwise. And as you know, and as we've briefly talked about, there's all of these quote unquote experts, and it takes you, especially as a child, especially, I would call being in your early 20s a bit of a child. You're looking for someone who has the answers. And it took me quite a while to realize, well, no one has the answers. I need to become more of an autodidact than I've ever been. And not only do my own research, but then find people like yourself and others to say, hey, I learned this. What do you, as a practitioner of this, think about what I read? Right. So I would say, the weight loss was a big thing, but what it taught me about the gathering of knowledge and finding the actionables within the knowledge as a human, I feel like that almost was a bigger, more poignant thing, if I'm being honest. Because I could have just like lost the weight, it could have stayed off, good, I'm good to go into life.
Right.
But I feel fortunate that being skinny didn't equal healthy, because the past 20 years of being continually excited about learning to better understand what's going on in my body in every fashion, whether it's, you know, what impact do hormones have on my brain? What impact do hormones have on how I recover after CrossFit? What impact does my neurotransmitter state have on how I do in CrossFit? You know?
Right.
It's endless, and nothing exists all by itself. Feeling this here, it's attached to a whole array of other things over here.
Right.
And I think even though it wasn't the right way to lose the weight, I think it was the first time I learned, like, oh, you can do hard things,
Right.
even though
Right.
it wasn't the right way. It was like, oh, if I decide that this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it. And, it might not have been the right way, but there's always a lesson to be learned. And
well, there had to be a huge psychological benefit of just being able to have the self-discipline to do that.
Yep.
Because 99.99% of people can't. I mean, they can't. I mean, I think it makes a lot more sense if you dial somebody in from an optimal diet standpoint, whether that's carnivore or paleo or keto or whatever. And then the weight loss is a byproduct of just trying to eat better.
Agreed.
And so
I wish keto, it would have been wonderful for this whole space of metabolic health to have been kind of the marching orders, but it was, the no fat was marching orders.
Well, that was the propaganda.
Yep.
And it still is the propaganda. And the average American sadly believes that healthy fats are not healthy, and that low fat. And anytime you see low fat, you just should automatically think this is bad, because they had to put a lot of other BS into it to make it even taste good.
Well, and it's the deprogramming is real. I was fortunate to meet a woman early in my career in this space who helped unindoctrinate me. She introduced me to the Weston A. Price Foundation. She introduced me to Sally Fallon. I also thought soy was good. There were all sorts of things I thought were good that were bad. It's the flip the pyramid. The pyramid was upside down, and you've got to deprogram, and it's really difficult. And the other good thing about having gone through it is that I have a whole different starting place in trying to help people on their health journey, because I have been through my own, and no one could have told, when I thought I wanted to be vegan, no one could have told me that that was the wrong way. I had to come to that on my own.
Right.
So I've learned to be, I want to tell someone to eat a steak 90% of the time, but I don't want to if you have decided as a human that you want to change your health, and you feel like you've done your research and you're feeling really strong and good about yourself because you chose to be vegan and you're feeling good, I do not want to take away from you how good it's making you feel that you committed to something to make you feel better. Now, I'll be here when you need some help, because other things are messed up now, because it wasn't the right way to go. But you need to meet people where they're at, and you need to give them space to feel good and proud of the decisions that were difficult that they made.
Before we continue with this great discussion, I just want to take a quick break to acknowledge this week's sponsor. I'm constantly exploring new avenues to enhance well-being and address any health concerns. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to an exciting supplement called Stem Regen, which I take daily and genuinely believe could revolutionize your health journey as well. Stem Regen stands out as a game changer in the realm of wellness. Crafted from 5 potent plant extracts, it boasts a remarkable ability to stimulate the release of your body's own stem cells from your red bone marrow. Why is this significant? Well, stem cells are the superheroes of our body's natural repair system. They possess the extraordinary capacity to morph into various cell types, aiding in tissue regeneration and repair. As we age, the quantity of circulating stem cells in our system reduces significantly, impairing our body's ability to heal and rejuvenate itself effectively. Stem Regen steps in to counter this decline by kickstarting the release of stem cells into circulation, thereby bolstering your body's innate repair mechanisms. Once unleashed into your bloodstream, these mobilized stem cells actively seek out areas of damage or injury, initiating the healing process. By incorporating Stem Regen into your daily routine, you're essentially empowering your body to tap into its own regenerative prowess more efficiently. I firmly believe that Stem Regen could be a valuable addition to your wellness regimen, especially if you're seeking to fortify overall health and vitality, accelerate tissue repair, or expedite recovery from injury or illness. This first of its kind stem cell mobilizer is changing the game in regenerative medicine. Don't wait to unleash your body's innate healing capabilities. Visit stemregen.co/Dr. Steven, that's with a PH, and use the code SBPOD to get a 15% discount off your first order of Stem Regen. Hey Spelunkers, we're thrilled to kick off Season 6 with a fresh new look and the most exciting content we've ever delivered. This season, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of human optimization and understanding. But wait, there's more. We're giving back to our loyal listeners with an exclusive giveaway each and every episode of Season 6. That's right, prizes are waiting just for you. So how can you join in on this fun? Well, it's simple. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and here's the magic touch. Comment, "Let's Spelunk" on any of our Season 6 YouTube videos to enter. Of course, please add anything else you'd like to your review. Don't miss your chance to explore, learn, and win with the Pod of Inquiry. Let's spelunk into the wonders of Season 6 together.
And it's hard because I'd really like to tell people what I really think, but I also don't want to scare them off the path, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, diet is much like religion. It's very, not necessarily always fact-based, but tremendously belief-based. And
I call them dietary ideologies for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I think what you say is true, and that education is very powerful. And so is nonsense education, which is what we're trying to overcome. I mean, look at our situation now in the United States. We're the sickest country in the world with the highest economy per individual in the world. Yep. And you have to ask yourself, well, why is this? And the answer is, much of it is because, I think it comes down to two things. One, what we're putting in our pie holes every day that is just literally toxic, like seed oils and all of this processed stuff. And then the other is just the environmental toxins that we've created as man to destroy ourselves. So, and I'm not a climate guy or anything like that, but you can't be blowing glyphosate all over your oatmeal to dry it out and expect people to thrive.
Well, and it is a really difficult ball to untangle. And this is a conversation that I have with many people. It's very difficult to untangle because, one, there is a strength of mind that seems to be missing from the American population to begin with. Maybe things are getting better now, but you own your state of health, and you must own the decisions you make about what you put in your mouth and how you live, because no doctor can fix that. So there's a personal responsibility thing missing. There is, if you're the regular person, not in this metabolic health, biohacking, feel amazing space, you're still scared to death of saturated fat and cholesterol because of all those years of programming.
Right.
We have low testosterone from the phthalates. We have messed up endocrine systems from all of the other chemicals. So are we having a hard time with personal responsibility because all of those chemicals have completely messed up our hormonal systems? It's like, how do we untangling this mess of what we have, industry has been allowed to feed people, of what the media has been allowed to tell people, of what industry has been allowed to put into the environment. It's like, it's very overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me to consider where to start for someone, and I have a fairly solid understanding of what's going on. So when I think about the average person who's just all of a sudden fed up and where do I start, I feel empathy for them, but I want them to get angry, because until you get angry, you're not going to do the deep dives into, like, I love watching right now, like all of the young influencers, they're all surprised about canola oil. Like I've been telling people, and I've been telling people forever, it's Canada oil. Canada paid the United States to take it. It's genetically modified rapeseed oil. So I love seeing all these new people hollering about what most of us have been hollering about for the past 20 years.
Well, I think anything that was designed originally to be, a fuel additive for combustion engines and that type of thing, which canola oil and that's just not us. And all of the seed oils, for what they have to do to get the oil out of the product, they have to
Solvents.
put in. Oh yeah, unbelievable.
Yep.
It's like, and truthfully, you wonder why it's even legal.
Yeah,
it's far more
because money can be made. I mean, and that's, the whole this whole realm where they're trying to say all of this stuff is conspiracy theory. Well, if the conspiracy theory stopped becoming true, then maybe we would stop having these conspiracies. I don't think there's any conspiracy. I think humans like to grow things. Humans like to make money, because money is this stuff we exchange to be able to move forward in life. And then we just get going and nobody stops to think about it. And then before you know it, here we have a product that no one should be eating, but we have put it through processes that are supposed to protect us. Like this whole grass generally recognized as safe thing. There's a lot of things generally recognized as safe that I'm not going to, have as a part of my life.
Right.
They're not conspiracy theories. In my mind, most of these things come down to industry, and industry comes down to money. And if we each individually do not start questioning what we choose to have as a part of our lives, part of that is on us. We need to be loud enough to tell them no with our dollars, with our voices. Because if money can be made, whoever that they are, they're not going to stop of their own accord.
Yeah, and the problem with canola oil and all of the seed oils is that it's everywhere. I mean, you walk into a store and you say, okay, I'm going to really do something. I'm going to eat healthy today. I'm going to go get some celery and I'm going to do some hummus. And then you go to the hummus section of the store. Good luck on trying to find one that's made without canola oil. It's almost impossible to find.
No, you can't.
Yeah. And it's like, the individual's trying to do the right thing, but unless you get a microscope out to look at every little ingredient in these processed foods, it's almost impossible to eat clean.
Well, and it's interesting. I haven't seen it in the States, but I see these images that people are posting. I could be wrong, but I think it's the UK. It's some other country where they have it's like this scale of what's good and what's bad for you. And the hummus you just described that would have the seed oils would be like a green light. This is great. Eat liberally. Mm-hmm. And then a steak would have red, like stop. This is not good for your heart.
Right.
And to me, that's the biggest insanity, is that we're demonizing the real foods that nourish us. And then we're allowing industry to use the cheapest possible ingredients, the canola oil, in all of these processed foods. And it seems to me, and I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about what we're going to see in the next 40 years, but it would be phenomenal. Like it would make things much easier if we just eliminated certain ingredients from being available for companies to use in their processed products. Because then a hummus made with olive oil, if they're not tasting of olive oil, go for it. Avocado oil. We have options that are good.
Right.
But you're right. like, I go back and forth. I've kind of got a Goggins mentality where people need to wake up, take responsibility, read the label. But by the same token, these other folks over here making the product shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like, there needs to be accountability on both sides.
Right.
In my opinion.
No, I agree with your opinion. I think that's true. But I think that, part of the, after practicing now for 38 years, there are very few people that really want to invest in chopping the wood and toting the water. They want a pill. I want a prescription. I don't want to have to mess around with actually having to eat healthy and actually having to go exercise and all this other stuff. So you have to have a receptacle in that particular human being that wants to say, okay, I get it. This is not an easy process. It's something that I'm going to really have to do. I'm going to have to get tough with myself, really dial in, do the exercise, read the food labels, change my diet, do all of these other things. But I really think that if some of this nonsense was just stopped, like canola oil, even if the masses were still eating all of the bad things without the seed oils, they might be better. There might be, there might be just a little less cardiovascular events. Who knows, right? But it's amazing when you talk about conspiracy theories. It always seems to be that when somebody comes out and they say, this probably isn't so good, and that goes against the grain of industry and making all this money, these folks are instantly labeled as kooks, not real practitioners, all of this other stuff, because they have to demonize that individual, because that in that case, they're coming from truth rather than just trying to screw up a profit and loss statement for a company. That's not the inherent.
No. Well, I think X is like Elon and X are we're in a different world where it's going to be harder to pull the wool over people's eyes moving forward. That's what I want to say.
Right.
I think information is so available and so quickly. And yes, there's myth information all over the place. We've got crazy voices saying crazy things. People still have to sift through it. But I still think it's going to be harder to trick people at moving forward. And it's going to be interesting to watch what happens, just with, again, things a lot of us in this industry have known forever. Like, seed oils, I wasn't calling them seed oils. It was like, we don't want the pro-inflammatory high omega-6 oils. So I always steered people away before seed oils became the thing, so I'm again cautiously optimistic to see what it looks like for the next 4, 10, 20 years. And I really, you are correct. And you are correct. Even the people who want to change don't understand how hard change is and how many changes they're going to have to make. So if we can at least clean up the products that they're going to be purchasing, then to your point, the physicians don't have as much of a mess when they have some sort of an issue.
Right.
There's a lot to untangle.
Yeah, no, there is. Well, we got a little bit tangential there, but I think now we're going to bring this back. So we're going to talk about nootropics. Mollee, would you just tell everybody what a nootropic is, just so that they have a baseline understanding?
Yeah, so nootropics, they come from the Greek or the Latin for mind turning. So they are intended to be a substance that turns an already just fine brain into a better brain, if you will.
Right.
And, my introduction to them was over 20 years ago. Someone told me about this stuff called phenibut. And I looked into phenibut, and phenibut is this synthetic nootropic, I guess, originally made by the Russians. But what I loved about this little story when I was stimulated to go learn more was that there was this period of time after the Iron Curtain fell where Russian scientists got to kind of just play. No one was telling them what to do for a minute. And they wanted to make better brains. So they were thinking, what do we do to make better brains? And phenibut was something that they had created to help cosmonauts not have anxiety attacks when they had to go out and do something on the spaceship.
Okay.
So I always remember that. this idea of how do we make a good brain better? That actually used to be our tagline. So nootropics are drugs, supplements, and nutraceuticals that are going to bring about a noticeable difference, a noticeable effect in cognitive function, in speed of neurotransmission, in clarity, in focus. And you will see many different things these days being kind of put into the category of nootropic that are wonderful, but I would not call a nootropic. Like ashwagandha is lovely. It's not a nootropic, right?
Okay.
Turmeric, lovely. Many wonderful things for the brain, not a nootropic. For me, a nootropic ideally is hitting on acetylcholine or dopamine in a way that is noticeable to the user. You were feeling maybe a little less motivated. Now we bumped up your dopamine. Now we feel more motivated. Maybe your neurotransmission was a little slow. You were having a problem with recall. We get your acetylcholine optimized. Now we have better focus. So nootropics, substances that make your cognitive function better in a measurable way, to me is the actual definition of a nootropic, even though these days, again, people are kind of tagging that word onto a lot of things that I would not call a nootropic.
Well, would you consider caffeine a nootropic?
Caffeine is the #1 used nootropic by everyone in the world, 100%.
By far.
Yep,
It's one of my favorite drugs of choice. And so,
Same.
you can already stack right there by just having your daily cup or 5 in the morning.
That's me.
And throwing a little bit of your magical powder in there. Now you've already stacked. So you got your caffeine, and then we've got this wonderful powder that you've got. Tell us what's in it.
And really, that was a big part of the creation of this stack. So L-theanine and caffeine, all by themselves, there are hundreds of studies on how those two work together. So caffeine and theanine play beautifully together. Same with the alpha GPC in caffeine. So not only has, coffee become sort of the delivery device for so many of the things that we ingest these days, I wanted this nootropic stack to be something that helps you get even more out of the caffeine and helped diminish the things that some people experience with caffeine. I don't get jitters from coffee personally. I don't get a crash. Many people do. And they find when they put the keto brains in the coffee, they don't get the afternoon slump, they don't get the crash, and they don't get the jitters. And that was by design. I want you to enjoy the caffeine. And if you're someone, it sounds like you and I both are fine with caffeine, but for people who are stuck with only 1 cup of coffee, we have had many reports of people who were able to drink coffee again because they weren't having those negatives from their cup of coffee when adding the keto brains to the coffee.
Clarify for me and the audience what alpha GPC is.
Yeah, so alpha GPC is one of my favorites. Alpha GPC is a form of choline. It is alpha-glycerylphosphocholine. This is a form of choline that does the best job of crossing the blood-brain barrier to increase production of acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is a primary neuromodulator of focus as a mammal. You don't get to focus as a mammal if you have suboptimal acetylcholine. And a lot of people don't think about this. I didn't in the beginning. So, we think about nootropics, we think about the brain, but the brain and the nervous system, they're the same thing. So when we're talking about a nootropic affecting the brain, we're also talking about the rest of the physical body. So alpha GPC in appropriate doses is fantastic for physical activity. If you think about speed of neurotransmission with regards to thought, think about that too if you're doing a box jump, if you're doing a sprint, if you want to move weight fast. We need acetylcholine for all of that. So acetylcholine is a lovely molecule. And alpha GPC is the best way to increase acetylcholine in the brain. We can, steak and eggs, there's all sorts of places to get choline. But another piece of this puzzle, and I have all of these puzzle pieces or missing puzzle pieces, are your MTHFR gene mutations, your PEMT gene mutations, your COMT.
Right.
There's a number of different fairly common SNPs that people can have that make it such that they're not good at utilizing choline. They're not good at making acetylcholine.
And now a message from our sponsor. The power of ketones, your body's alternative fuel. The folks at Approved Medical Solutions have done it again. That's right, with their new Clean Ketone Supplement. Imagine your body as a hybrid car capable of running on 2 different fuel sources. While glucose is your body's regular gasoline, ketones are like switching to an efficient, clean-burning alternative fuel. I would say rocket fuel. When your body produces ketones, whether through fasting, low-carb dieting, or intense exercise, something remarkable happens. These molecular powerhouses cross the blood-brain barrier, providing crystal clear mental energy that many describe as enhanced focus and clarity. But ketones aren't just brain fuel. They're efficient energy sources for your heart, muscles, and other vital organs. Think of them as premium-grade fuel that produces less metabolic waste than glucose processing. Research suggests ketones may offer additional benefits, reduced inflammation, improved metabolic health, and even potential neuroprotective properties. They're particularly interesting for athletes seeking sustained energy and anyone looking to optimize their cognitive performance. The best part? Your body is naturally designed to produce and use ketones. It's not about completely replacing glucose, it's about metabolic flexibility, giving your body the ability to thrive on both fuel sources. Whether you're interested in mental clarity, athletic performance, or overall health, understanding and harnessing the power of ketones might be your key to unlocking new levels of well-being. Approved Medical Solutions Clean Ketone Formula contains nature-identical ketones. These ketones provide the same fuel as those produced through a keto diet. Approved Medical Solutions Ketone Formula does not contain sugar, caffeine, or 1,3-butane-diol, and they are not ketone salts. I've been using them routinely now and notice a minimum of a 10% increase in exercise performance. By diving deep into cutting-edge research and real-world applications with leading scientists and practitioners, the Pod of Inquiry illuminates the science-backed path to enhancing your mind and body's potential. You can find us on all platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please join us.
And if you happen to be in that, if you happen to be one of those individuals, you could eat all the choline in the world and possibly still have an issue with getting that acetylcholine produced.
So then if I get this right, we could have maybe 2 branches of effect for nootropics. One would be increase in acetylcholine, and the other could be like just through ketone bodies, increasing mitochondrial energy that's going to ultimately produce more acetylcholine. So these are directly related.
Yes. So I also personally, I put ketones, both exogenous and endogenous. I personally think that they belong in the nootropic class for the effects that they have on the brain.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But doesn't your C8 MCT, medium chain triglyceride?
Yeah. So the base of the product, the thing about the product that makes it creamy and delicious, and the thing about the product that makes it keto is a full 8 grams of that C8 MCT. So that caprylic acid is the medium chain triglyceride that does the best job of stimulating the liver's production of ketone bodies. So irrespective of whether or not someone is fat adapted, if they haven't eaten for 8 hours and the first thing they do is have a cup of coffee with a scoop of keto grains, you're going to get some ketones on board, more or less, depending on your current status.
Right.
So we're going to bump ketones. We're going to bump acetylcholine. You get a bit of a bump in dopamine from the L-theanine, but you're also getting a bump in alpha brain waves from L-theanine. So we can jack up dopamine and now you've got a bunch of energy but you don't know what to do with it. You're kind of like, the little cartoon character from South Park, Tweak. You're just like, I have energy, but what do I do with it? Right. Theanine is really helpful for bringing that energy in that brain energy in with alpha brainwaves. Alpha brainwaves are, think of when you're doing something you love. It's akin to flow state. When you're doing something you love and it feels effortless and flowy, that's an alpha brainwave state. So we're tickling the dopamine, we're tickling the acetylcholine, we're getting it into an alpha brainwave state, and then we're adding those ketone bodies as well, which have a normalizing effect on brain waves, I believe, via GABA. Yeah.
Okay, so two questions I have to interject these questions right now. You talk about fat adapted, but before you tell us what fat adapted really means, because I'd like to know, because I'm sometimes fat and I'm adapted to to being fat.
Fair.
But what about this product as far as breaking a fast?
Yeah.
So are you pretty much safe if like somebody says, okay, I like to really time restrict, and I want to stop eating at 7 p.m. and I don't want to have anything until noon the next day, but I'm going to have my coffee in the morning with this great product.
Yep.
Does that break my fast or not?
So we get this question a lot. We put a blog together to help with it. So I have to answer that with a question to start. And that's typically what I do. It really depends on what are you optimizing for in trying to achieve the fasted state, and what fasting modality are you following. So if you're doing a dry fast or a water fast, then clearly you're not even going to have coffee.
Right.
Most people are, whether they understand it or not, are fasting and intermittent fasting and doing time restricted feeding for the bump in ketones. So whether they know it or not, when you're fasting, you're going to bump ketones, which is going to induce autophagy, which is going to suppress mTOR for a period of time, reduce inflammation for a period of time. You're essentially giving your body an opportunity to focus on repair and cleanup in the most basic terms. So if that is why you are fasting or time restricted feeding, Keto Brains will help you get more out of it. Right. One, because we're going to further boost ketones. Two, what I have found with people who have a hard time, like they can't even do a 10-hour, intermittent fast, they forget they were hungry because they got a ketone bump and their brain wasn't screaming for glucose because their brain was properly fed with the ketones, with the MCT, and with having proper neurotransmitters. Right. So for 90% of people, for their reasons for fasting, this is going to help with it. And of course, if again, dry fast, water fast, anything you adjust is going to quote unquote break the fast. But if you're optimizing for that state of increased autophagy and ketones, this is going to help you with that. And it'll help you prolong your fast if you're struggling.
Yeah, that's the one thing I have noticed since I started using it, is that I have much less hunger in the morning. Yep. And it's great because one, it makes my coffee just taste better. So I mean, if it tasted horrible, I mean, I drink ketones and they taste like crap, but I know enjoyable. No, but you can't say that about this, and it actually tastes great. All right. So what about fat adapted? What does that mean?
Yep. So fat adaptation, 90%, maybe it's less now, but 90% of humans on the planet right now, they're running off of a primary fuel substrate of glycogen. So they're running off of glucose. All of us, unless there's some genetic disorder I don't know about, evolutionarily, our livers know exactly how to produce ketones as a secondary fuel substrate. Many would argue that evolutionarily is and should be our primary fuel substrate, with glycogen as a secondary. So when we've spent our whole lives, as I did, and as most people did, doing what we were told, you're supposed to eat 3 times a day. You probably should snack in between, otherwise your blood sugar is going to dip. You've never run on ketones. So when we speak of fat adapting, this is the process where we start to remove carbohydrates and sugar from our diet and starve our liver, our brain, the whole body that is accustomed to running on this one fuel source. So we are getting to the place where we are helping our evolutionary machinery remember how to produce ketones. So we're going to remember how to produce ketones via the liver. Then our bodies have to remember and learn how to make the molecules to utilize the ketones. And so the fat adaptation process is the process of the removal of carbohydrates such that the liver can produce ketones and the body can learn to run off of ketones as a fuel. And we produce these ketones depending on, how much weight we have on our body. Typically, if you're trying to lose weight, you're going to produce ketones from your own body fat. And if you're already thin and don't want to lose weight, you're going to be producing those ketones primarily from ingested dietary fat. The process of fat adaptation is different for everyone because it depends on why you are fat adapting, why you would like to be in the ketogenic state. It is also different for everyone depending on whether or not you are an athlete and the kind of athletics that you are engaged in. For myself, I was doing long mountain trail runs. Once I fat adapted, was running on ketones, right? So at the beginning of the adaptation process, I'm going to stop for a minute. True fat adaptation can be a 6 month to 1 year process. So just because you start producing ketones after the first 7 to 10 days does not mean you are fat adapted. You're at the very beginning of that process.
Right.
And if you are a very active individual, as I was and was trail running, I felt amazing, but my trail runs were not 10 miles in the mountains anymore. They were 2 miles in the beginning because my muscles, they weren't good at using other fuel substrates yet.
Right.
So fat adaptation, different for everyone, depending on what it is you're optimizing for. But really, it's the process of bringing on a secondary fuel source. And it can become your primary fuel source if you're a weirdo like me and prefer the ketogenic state. It can become kind of a secret weapon to have in your back pocket when you want to fast or when you want to lose weight or you want X, Y, or Z. But personally, I think we were probably in ketosis evolutionarily like 90% of the time because carbohydrates just weren't readily available.
Right. Yeah, no, ancestral man didn't get fruit all year long.
No.
I mean, and didn't get food every day either, So
well, that was that was the big thing. And so when I decided to try keto, I was shocked that there was this whole other gear that I didn't even know existed because I wasn't trying to fix anything. My brain worked just fine. I knew all the tools, but ketones, like when ketosis first hit and my ketones were like 6, 7, 8 millimole, there's nothing that feels like that. No. And then kind of took me down the path of, so 250, 300,000 years ago, you're out on the plain, your little family, you're trying not to die, you have no food. The hunters needed to be clearer, sharper, stronger, and more focused after days without food so they could go get that elk. Right. So this whole narrative of, no, you need to eat all the time because your brain is going to work better if you eat all the time. No, it's kind of the opposite. Like if you can get ketones on board, your brain is going to function better than it's ever functioned versus you eating a banana every, few hours to mainline glycogen into your system. So sorry, to me, it's such an exciting thing. I'm always excited when people choose to try it for the first time and feel ketones for the first time. They're magical.
Well, I think, I've done keto for about a year and then, I still will cycle now and then, but I think that folks have to understand that when you go from, the old fuel, carbohydrates, to the new fuel, ketones, that you're going to go through a little keto flu. And so there's ways to mitigate that.
Correct.
But it's not so fun the first few days.
No, but it is interesting. So I've helped a number of people fat adapt, and most of what's happening with keto flu, so there's the psychological discomfort of not being able to grab your favorite item. And so I acknowledge that, but so much of what people feel with keto flu, headaches, constipation and or diarrhea, chronic thirst, headaches, I think I said headaches. This is lack of sodium. One of the things that I wish more people truly understood. So when you are running off of glucose as your primary fuel substrate, it takes your body 3 molecules of water to store 1 molecule of glucose. So when you fat adapt and your body's starting to run off of ketones and you are no longer holding on to 3 molecules of water for every 1 molecule of glucose. So think about that first 8 to 10 pounds that just falls off your body.
Right.
That's water. And for the entirety of your life, your body was accustomed to storing sodium and potassium and chloride in those 3 molecules of water that were attached to this 1 molecule of glucose. This guy's gone. Now these are gone. So most people, when they're going through keto flu, the primary thing that they're experiencing is a severe lack of sodium. Yes, magnesium, yes, potassium, yes, chloride. But I can't tell you how many people who I've had fat adapt, and I tell them this, but then they text me or they call me. I'm like, I have a headache. Oh, I have this. Go eat salt. Oh, I did. No. Pour salt in your hand and eat salt, because you can need 4 to 5 times more sodium in the beginning of fat adaptation than you typically would. So yes, there's so many ways to mitigate it. The use of exogenous ketones can help because you get your brain online.
Right.
MCT from just MCT or MCT from Keto Brains can help. But I think what you said is the thing. If you can get people through that first couple of weeks of discomfort, you just need the ketones to hit and you're in. Like
right.
You don't want to ever feel any different.
Exactly.
It's just too good.
I try to tell people it's like switching your car from regular gas to aviation fuel. I mean, it's just so much more
rocket
power.
Fuel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, all right. So Mollee, tell folks how they can get your product, and we've got a nice promotion for them. If they use the code POI15, they can get started with you. And so tell everybody how they can reach you and your website and everything.
We are Keto Brains with a Z. So keto, Keto brains with a Z.com. We do a lot of education and some funny things on Instagram, but if you want to learn more about the individual ingredients, we try to do a lot of education on our Instagram. But ketobrains.com. We love to have you. We love to have new users. We love to hear how our product hits different individuals. Right. But yeah, always looking forward to feedback from people.
Well, my last little bit of feedback before we hang up is I think not only is your product great, but your logo and graphics are fantastic. So I love the brain exploding with the little ketones, and that's such a cool t-shirt. We had fun with it, and that piece of art kind of came from how my brother and I felt when ketosis first hit. It was just the way ketones hit your brain, you're energized but calm at the same time. It's wonderful. Yeah. Well, Mollee, thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise, and I look forward to crossing paths with you again in the future.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
As you know, I'm passionate about learning new ways to address health concerns. Moreover, before I recommend any treatment or supplement, I always try it on myself. Today, I want to share my experience with Troche. I have investigated other phytocannabinoid formulas and found that, in general, they were not consistent or reliable in their results. What impressed me about the Troche delivery technology is that each rapid-release tab is engineered to provide fast-acting, long-lasting, reliable delivery of phytocannabinoids to support your health and well-being. Many physicians understand the importance of using phytocannabinoids for physical discomfort, sleep issues, and mood. But if the formula is not reliable, most patients will give up, never experiencing the real benefits. I put this to the test on myself and actually tracked my progress. This graph shows my results for reducing stress. Troche is so serious about how well their product works, they partnered with People Science to provide the Troche Tracker health assessment application that lets you monitor your progress and works with you to accomplish your wellness goals. If you are a patient, click the link below and the patient button to register for Troche Tracker. Assess your baseline health metrics and receive a free Troche sample in addition to getting preferred patient pricing on all products. If you are a clinician interested in adding Troche to your practice, click the link below and then the clinician button to register for a wholesale affiliate account, or go to the link above. I hope you all enjoyed today's show and got some truly empowering knowledge out of it. You can always follow up on anything we talked about in the show notes found at our website, podofinquiry.com. If you think you might have tickled just a few neurons inside that cerebral cortex, please spread the word to your friends and colleagues and tell them that they need to get spelunking. Also, if you can take a minute to leave a review on your podcast provider of choice, and especially Apple Podcasts, that would greatly help the show and be so appreciated, provided it's positive. And if not, then just keep your pie hole shut and stay down in that cave. Let's keep spelunking.
This podcast is designed for informational purposes only and does not constitute any medical or surgical consulting advice or imply a development of any physician-patient relationship. The opinions of guests who are featured on the show are not necessarily the opinions of Dr. Barrett or the production team. This podcast is owned solely by Barrett Medical and Surgical Media, LLC. While the show is highly oriented for physicians and healthcare providers, anyone interested in the improvement of human performance and understanding will find this a welcome goblet to sip from, or guzzle. However, no representation or warranties are made in any way whatsoever on this podcast for any products, techniques, or other things discussed. Invited guests are not vetted by the Pod of Inquiry for their qualifications and may have a direct or indirect financial interest in what they present and discuss on the show. The Pod of Inquiry disclaims any responsibility from anything taken from the show and used personally or professionally. It is a responsibility of the listener to perform their own due diligence prior to the implementation of any ideas, products, techniques, or anything talked about on the show.